We are continuing with slide 11 for part 3, where we will discuss an exercise. So in this slide, you are given a numerical example to determine the equilibrium level of income. So suppose you are given the following information that you know that y is equal to c plus I plus g, where you have your consumption function, and here your consumption function is given as 60, so that is your autonomous consumption, plus 0.6, that is your NPC, and in brackets y minus t, so this represents the disposable income yb. And then you have your investment spending is equal to 250, and government spending is equal to 150. And note here, you are given t is equal to 100. So how do we go about answering the following questions? And the slides that follow will answer each of these questions. So firstly, we need to determine what is the type of tax system in the economy. Secondly, we need to derive the equilibrium level of income for the economy. Then we need to illustrate. So that means we need to draw a graph that shows the equilibrium. And then we are going to have to calculate the equilibrium value if G is equal to 200. So note that there is a difference here between G being equal to 150 and G increasing by 50 to 200. So we need to determine what happens to the equilibrium value. And then lastly, we need to determine the value of the multiplier in the economy. Right, so let's look at the first question. The first question says, what is the tax system in the economy? And the answer is, it is proportional, right? Because it is not determined by income. So what I'd like you to take note of is that here you are given a lump sum tax amount of T equal to 100. So you weren't given a tax rate of, let's say, 0.25 or 0.3, but you were given T, capital T, right? So here, instead of having a tax rate, you have capital T, a lump sum tax amount. So that's important to take note, right? The second question says, derive the equilibrium level of income for the economy. So it's fairly straightforward. Although it may look complicated, you can do this. So here we know that our equilibrium condition is where y is equal to a. So you could always state your equilibrium condition, although it's not shown here. And we know that A, which is our aggregate spending, is given by C plus I plus G. So hence, Y would be equal to C plus I plus G. And now we can substitute the function that we were given for consumption spending. And we were given 250 for investment spending, and we were given 150 for government spending. So we've substituted those components for these variables or symbols. Right? So now we can go ahead and solve. So what are we going to do? Well, first things first, I'm going to multiply out. So this is going to give me 0.6y. But I also know that t was equal to 100. So now if I substitute 100 in here, this is going to be minus 100. So 0.6 multiplied by minus 100 is going to give me minus 60. And I also have 0.6y. And then finally, you can see 60 plus 250 plus 150 is going to give me 460. Right? So now the next thing that I can do is I can add my like terms. So I can say 460 minus 60 is going to give me 400. And now I can take my y over to the left-hand side. And this is important to note. We don't write it, but we know that there is an invisible 1 in front of this y. So therefore, this becomes 1y. And when we take this over, it becomes minus 0.6y. So 1y minus 0.6y would give you 0.4y equal to 400. And then you can simply go and solve for y by saying y is equal to 400 divided by 0.4, and that is going to give you 1,000. So that is to answer the second question. Derive the equilibrium level of income y. That's essentially what it's asking you. Calculate y for y0. So the third question asks that you illustrate. So whenever you see illustrate or illustrate and explain, they want you to provide a diagram. So here you have to illustrate the equilibrium on an appropriate diagram. So first things first, you need to always label your axes. So on your vertical axis, you will have aggregate spending. So just for this case, I've shown that your aggregate spending, aggregate means total. So your total spending is made up of C plus I plus G. Or you could just write aggregate spending for your vertical axis. And then on your horizontal or x-axis, you would say total income or Y, right? Next, you need to show your 45-degree line. And we know that your 45-degree line shows you all the points where Y is equal to A. And then next, we need to plot our aggregate spending function. So your aggregate spending function would have a vertical intercept. Where's the cursor? There we go. Would have a vertical intercept, and that vertical intercept is given by the 400 that you calculated previously, and that represents the autonomous components C bar, I bar, and G bar. And then your slope of the function would be given by what you also calculated in the previous example. And then I would suggest that you also label your aggregate spending function as A is equal to C plus I plus G, just for correctness sake. So important things to note in a diagram that we'll always look for: label your axis. So I'd say aggregate spending over there, and then total income on the side. Always show your vertical intercept and the value. Label your aggregate spending function. So you could say that this is aggregate spending is equal to A is equal to C plus I plus G. Draw your 45-degree line, and then very importantly, show your equilibrium level of income. So that would be E, and then your equilibrium is given by 1000, which you just indicated. So equilibrium level of income Y0, please indicate that. Question 4 asks that you find the equilibrium value of income if G is equal to 200. So this is important because in the initial example, G was equal to 150. Now they're asking you to calculate the equilibrium value of income, Y, if G is equal to 200. So take note, it has increased by 50 and it has increased to G equal to 200. So always read your questions carefully. So the only difference here is we need to substitute G is equal to 200 instead of the 150. So in order to find our equilibrium value, which is Y, that's what they're asking, again, indicate your equilibrium conditions. So I would first and foremost say Y is equal to A, although it's not shown there. And then you would say Y is equal to, what is A comprised of? Well, A is comprised of C plus I plus G. And what is C? Well, C, I know, is my consumption function, and my consumption function is given over here, right? I got it from there. So I just substituted that. I know that my investment spending function, I bar, it is autonomous, so that is equal to 250. And G now has become 200. So now you're also going to have to substitute T is equal to 100 into this formula. And then before you continue, always remember to multiply out. So this is going to become 0.6y. And if you multiply out, it's going to become 0.6y. And remember, you substituted 100 in over there. So that is going to be 0.6 multiplied by minus 100. And that's going to give you minus 60. So therefore, I can say 510 minus 60 is going to give me 450, and I have 0.6y. I want to take my 0.6y over to the left-hand side, and I know when I do that, it's going to become negative. So hence, this is going to be 1y minus 0.6y, taking it over onto the left-hand side. I'm left with 0.4y, and I'm left with 450 on the right-hand side. So hence, to get y, I would divide both by 0.4. So therefore, y is going to be equal to 450 divided by 0.4, and that's going to give me 1,125. So note the difference. G changed by 50 from 150 to 200. My equilibrium level of income, Y, changed from 1,000 to 1,125. Important to note that. The final question, question 5, asks us, what is the value of the multiplier in the economy? So in order to calculate the value of the multiplier, we can express the equation as follows. The change in income, delta y, is equal to the multiplier alpha times the change in autonomous spending, delta A. In this case, the autonomous component that has changed is government spending. From this equation, we can also derive the multiplier as the ratio between the change in income and the change in autonomous spending, more generally, or in this case, the change in government spending. So in order to solve for alpha, you have to make alpha the subject of the formula. So let's see what we have. We know from the previous questions that when government spending was equal to 150, the equilibrium level of income was 1,000. And when government spending changed to 200, the equilibrium level of income became 1,125. Hence, the change in Y is going to be equal to the new equilibrium level of income minus the old equilibrium level of income, and that is equal to 125. Similarly, the change in government spending is going to be equal to the new government spending amount, which was 200, minus the old government spending amount, which is 150, and that gives you 50. So in order to calculate alpha, by rearranging this formula, making alpha the subject of the formula, I have the ratio of my change in income over my change in autonomous government spending. So that is 125 divided by 50, and that is going to be equal to 2.5. There are many more applications of including the government sector into the model, whereby you may find that T is in fact the tax rate. So I would urge you to find more examples, to work through that, and then consult your lecturer. We will now move on to the next part, where we include the foreign sector, which is exports and imports.